back to Building the Boys. We've now got issue 34 of Hachette's Build the Titanic. Now, in this one, we're adding yet more detail to the engines. It's repetition. But we are adding the second thrust block to the engine room floor, which isn't wildly different from the first one we did. So, I mean, thankfully, this is the last of the repetition. We are moving on to shiny new things after this. But we're going to put the thrust block together. We're going to screw that into the floor. And then we are going to add gangways and a little bit more detail into the engine. Not loads, a little bit more detail into the engine. And then by the end of this, we'll have 2 thrust blocks set to the engine room floor. And then we'll be ready to start moving on and making this thing move, because that's what we're moving on to next. At the end of this one, we'll be talking about a show that's new to Netflix but isn't new. So there is a film called Wake in the Titanic, which is part of our Titanic at the Movies we watched. We'll be talking about that one at the end. It's a very poignant story. It's about the Edigal 14, which is a lesser known story in the mainstream. I mean, if in Ireland, very well known story. In the UK, very well known story. Outside of that, not quite so much. But we will be talking about that one as well. So again, bit of repetition. So kind of what I did with the last one. I'm gonna move through it fairly swiftly, but I will focus on the engine block and show you exactly what it is what we're doing there. So that's it. Let's get into it. Okay, so what we've done here is we've built this part of the thrust block. This just involved gluing some of these pipes to this and installing it in. So you can see where it goes on the first one. That's there. This way it goes, pops into these holes here. Now we have this very, very, very tiny dial piece that needs to be installed next. Now, I mean, this is how small this is. This is bloody tiny. Let's see if we can get a zoom on that against the finger. That's how small that is. It's miniature. But, I mean, this is what we want, right? We want our detail. So we've got to cope with the fact that we're going to have to make very, very, very little details fit. Now, I'm going to wash you out because I've got to put the light on. Sorry about that. But if I don't, this is never going to happen. Okay, so... No, I don't think that's in. Christ alive. No, gonna have to hold that in front of my face. Okay, so that's in. What it wants us to do now is it wants us to put a screw in place to hold this in. It seems a bit weird that it would ask us to do this detail, then put a screw in, but that is what it's asked us to do, and we are but its humble servants. So let's flip this one over and get a screw in to hold this in place. So we are going into this hole here. Now I'm hoping this will just screw it in and it won't push it out, it will actually pull it too. Okay, so that's in. Again, don't go mad. You don't need to over tighten this thing and end up tearing it off. So that's that part done. So that's securely in place. What we're going to do now is going to move on and we're going to build the thrust blocks. There's a little bit of detailing to glue onto that. I'm going to do that. You've seen me do this before. So I'm going to do that and then we're going to fit this thrust block to the floor. Okay, so we built our thrust block here. Again, it's just the same detailing as on the last one. I glued it into place. And then we are going to fit this to the engine room floor. It's just going to drop straight in there. And we're going to secure this in place with 2 more of the EP screws. Now, EP screws are the silver ones. There are FP screws in this one, those are the little black ones, but we are using EPs for this one. And again, hopefully this will hold firm. I'm just going to screw this in place. Now, I'm not going to go mad on this one because I've got a feeling we're going to be loosening these up at some point. So let's get this way you can see it right. So we'll be going in here. There we go. There you go, that's one. Again, you'll see I'm not going mad. This is plastic into plastic, right? So don't over tighten this because you'll end up buggering up the inside of the plastic. And if you are going to have to loosen these or move them around or anything when we come to working components in there, it's better to have it so you can do that rather than so bloody tight that you've buggered it. That's it. Okay, so that's screwed in place. So now we've got 2 thrust blocks on the engine room floor. Now, I know there's more details going on this, so I can see it. This tiny detail, our favourite kind. Right, so let's start with the larger of the tiny details, which is, I appreciate is kind of an oxymoron, but yeah, it's what it is. Right, so this piece here is going to attach to the floor, and I'm going to tweezer this because, again, I don't want these giant sausage hands of mine are never going to I'm never just going to do this. Okay, so that's now this one's got a lug on it, so it can only go in one way. So you know full well that is the right way, because if it isn't, it wouldn't fit in. That's snug as hell. There's no reason to glue that at all. That's super snug. And now we've got a tiny piece here. This is the lubrication pump. Now they're saying not to glue this, but I reckon it's going to need glue, and I can't see this just sitting there. So this is the lubrication pump here. Let's see which way round this goes. That way. Now again, this is kind of half lugged, so there's only one way in this is going to go. Again, got to wash you out, I'm afraid. You're dreaming. That's in. That's in. Okay. So that's those 2 pieces done. Let's kill this light. Now it's asking for an FP screw. So the FP screw is going to hold that part in place. Yep. Okay, so a single FP screw. So let's get the FP screws ready. These are tiny little black screws. But I mean, it's weird that some of these aren't screw in place, because you look at them and think, really? Just glue or hold? But no, they want it screwed in. We'll screw it in. Right, so this is going to, let me see if I can adjust this camera so you can see what I'm doing. Right, so this one is going to go into this hole here. That seems to be going a lot further than I thought it would. Christ. Wow. Right, okay. That just seems mental to me, but okay. So that one is screwed in place. Now, I would imagine we're doing more tiny detail, which we are. So we have a pipe to go in, and what is that thing? Pegs on, it's just called details. I hate it when they do that. I mean, Titanic's not the one guilty of it, where they just refer to these pipes and whatnot as just detail. And you're like, well, tell me what it is. I'd kind of like to learn, but it's detail. So that's what it is. So let's have the detail. This is going in here. He says, so small. All right. So now you see me wearing the woman repellers on the last issue. You know exactly what's on my head right now. Okay, that will need glue in. So let's put a tiny drop of glue on the base of this one. And we'll hold that in place. I hope your builds are going well, and I hope that you're not having the same issues with old eyes as I am. I hope you can see perfectly. And this is just something that affects old dogs like me. Okay, so that's that one in. Now we've got a really tiny piece, which is, my God, that's small. Christ, look at that. Are you kidding? Are you kidding? Gone. Just pinged off into the abyss. Let's find it. Found, sorted, and installed. We've now put this final piece just here as well, and that is all we're doing on this floor. Let me zoom out. Not that far. There we go. So now we are a double flush block floor. That's exactly where we are, where we need to be. So we are looking lovely. We're getting ready now to start installing engines to this. But before we do that, we've got more detail to install to the engines. So we've got gangways and things like that to go onto the engines. So let's get that engine over and let's get this done. So remember the gangway from the last one? We're doing the exact same thing this time. We're going straight into the side here. There is some glue on this. And then we're going to drop into the bottom, the pins at the bottom there. And that will be our gangway installed. Nice and simple. Why can't they all be like that? So that's a very easy gangway installed. Lovely that. Love it when they're nice and easy. Now we've got valves here, and we've got the T800 plasma rifle there to install into the side of the engine. And that's going to be it for this one, thankfully. I believe. Yeah, okay. I remember. Righty. They ask you to do something mental with this one, if I remember. I think it's a case of... yeah. It's that one. This attaches to this pipe. Remember that. And that attaches to the back. But I can't remember how. Quick check the instructions. Yeah, so there's 3 holes at the top. This slots into 2 holes at the top, and then the pipe that we did in the last one then just slots into the side there. That seemed a lot easier this time around. Now, taking our T800 plasma assault rifle. I jest, of course, that's not what it is. It's detail. This one is going to fit into here. Now, do we need to glue that? Yeah. That's too loose. That's too loose. I want to get away with not gluing it. I don't like using glue. I just don't like using glue. I think it's a crap medium. I'm not a fan of gluing something to something else. I just don't think glue is ever secure. I think it makes a mess. And again, it's part of the reason why I don't airfix kit. I don't like gluing stuff to stuff. But don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm not. I can definitely see the benefits to airfix. Let's get the light on. I can definitely see the appeal of the airfix kit, because they do some beautiful ones. And then with the painting. Now, speaking of which, some of you may have seen on last month's, we had a fairly unsavoury comment on one of the videos about how our part work model sucks and a serious modeler wouldn't bother, and this is something of a retiree who doesn't know what they're doing. And I know some of you jumped on that, and I kind of deleted the messages because, there's no need. I've mentioned it before, there's a weird element of model snobbery in the world where people look down their nose at other people's models. And you tend to get that. I mean, not everyone's like that, thankfully. Some people are very chill, and I like to think most people who watch the videos are, but it happens. But, if you see it, just ignore it. I'll deal with it. So that's it. That's that one done. And that brings us to the end of this stage. So that's what we've got. So we've got our 2 engines looking really rather lovely. And now we have our double thrust block floor. And in the next one, we're not touching any of this. We're building a gearbox, which will eventually go on here. But we're not touching this in the next one. We're just putting the gearbox together. But let's have a chat. That's that one done. Again, it's repetition. It's something we've done before. But this is the nature of the beast. This is the way it is. On any vehicle, model, or anything that's symmetrical, you're going to get repetition. My main critique of that is break it up a bit, I think, is what they should do. I mean, it wouldn't be so bad if you got to repeat a build if you do something else for 4 or 5 issues, so you don't immediately do the exact same thing again the following month. If we'd have moved on and done a bit more hull or a bit more superstructure, then came back to this, it wouldn't be quite so fresh in the memory and think, I'm just doing the same bloody thing. But it's a necessary evil, and ultimately, the engines now look beautiful. They're very detailed. They're not done. I know there's more to go on these because I can see the holes. I'm like, so more stuff definitely gets added to this. And in the next one, building the gearbox. So we're not touching any of this. We're just building the gearbox. The gearbox is a standalone unit, which will ultimately attach to the floor. But at this stage, no. So it's just the gearbox that we're putting together next. It's beautiful. I mean, it's really nice. And I know a lot of you are getting a bit pissed off with just doing engine room. But it's the nature of the beast, man. It's the nature of the beast. So if you've ever built a part work car, that's what happens. You spend months building the engine, months and months and months, and then you take a beautiful engine and you bury it into a bonnet and you never see it again. But we know it's there, and the detail's the key here. So we know all these details that we built, and there's that sense of satisfaction in this. When people look at it one day, go, God, look at the detail you got. I did every single part of that. It's a good thing, beautiful thing. So Gearbox next, and then to finish out the month, we've got, again, something that isn't going to attach this, but we are going to attach both those engines to the engine room floor and more floor. So we're going to extend the floor, and we're going to attach those two engines. That's coming in 36, which will be coming up soon. It'll be 35 next. If you are just sticking around for build instructions, thank you for dropping by. Please remember to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. It helps us massively, 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 massively. And I can't say thank you enough to everybody that subscribed to us today. We never thought anybody was going to watch us do this, so we're overwhelmed whenever anybody does. So thank you for that. If you are sticking around for our Titanic talk, we are back at the movies. And we watched new on Netflix this week. It's not new. I can't stress that enough. It's not new. It's new to Netflix. So this might be the first time a wider audience will be able to get to see it. It's a documentary film called Build the Titanic, and that's what we watched. And it's about the Abigail 14. Now, so for some context, I'm not going to give it all away because most of you will have fairly easy access to this, so I don't want to spoil any of it for you. I mean, you know the story of what happened on the Titanic, but it's not about that. I mean, it really isn't. I mean, it naturally goes into what happened to the people the night of the sinking, but it's a very poignant film because it's about 14 people from a small town called Abigail that were all aboard in the Titanic. And this was a very, very, very poor community. I mean, we were talking 10, 15 people living in a 2-bed house where, 5 or 6 of them were sharing a bed. They had nothing. So America was the promised land. It really was. I mean, it was opportunity where there was no work. There was no... America was going to be this new dawn for them. So they were emigrating to America. And the sad thing about it is... they used to have these wakes for people who are immigrating to America where it was like a funeral. It was like a wake because the family pretty much knew they were never going to see them again. They were never going to come home. So they held what were essentially funerals for them. And that really got to me because I just thought, as sad as it is, they at least got to say goodbye. And I think that was the people that said goodbye to them had almost come to peace with the fact they weren't going to see them again, but hope would have still remained. Hope that one day I might go to America and see them again. Or maybe they'll make a big success and they'll come home one day. The hope was still there. So even though I think inside they knew I'll probably never see them again, there was still hope. Then after the night of Titanic, that hope was gone. So the 14 people that sailed on Titanic, tragically 11 of them were lost, and I mean lost. They were never rescued from the water. 11 of them were just gone. 3 survived, and the film goes into detail about the impact this had on that community, because these are things as well. I mean, as tragic as Titanic was, the ripple, no pun intended, was felt for years by the survivors and their families. And White Star Line were kind of just sleazy, man. White Star Line are like OCP and RoboCop, or just this horrible, horrible organisation that you see some of the skeezy things they did, and I know people have different affections and different views and different opinions about things that happened on Titanic and about it's. Jay Bruce Ishmael's a good example of one. People, some people think White Star Line were great, and I'm like, I don't know what you're seeing that I'm not, because I just saw them handle everything badly, and they basically conned a traumatized girl of the Abigail 14 into taking £23 for her stress and trauma, and that's it. So you've lost everything. Here's 23 quid. We're done. And they managed to sort of dupe her into signing this thing. When it goes into things like that. It's well worth watching. It's really good. Now, where I'm conflicted with it is when I put on, I thought it was a film. It isn't. It's a documentary. Now, I am avoiding Titanic documentaries for the Titanic at the Movies feature because There's so many of them, and I say that of all of all the documentaries about the Titanic, I might start watching some of them for this feature, because there are some good ones. Like Ghosts of the Abyss is fantastic, where you can kind of see what's going on with the Titanic at the bottom of the ocean. But the way too many of them are just conspiracy theories about the Titanic. And it's something I'm not discussing on the channel. I'm not going into conspiracy theories of the Titanic, because for me, when it comes to conspiracy theories, life just ain't that exciting. It's a real harsh way of looking at it, but I know it's lovely to think that there's some shadowy organisation out there that life's just not that exciting. Life's just too dull. So again, I know that it wasn't the Titanic that sank; it was the Olympic. Was it? Was it? Okay, let's say it was. Let's say, for argument's sake, it was. And I mean, I know I've just said I'm not going to discuss conspiracy theories. Let's say it was. Okay, let's see if we can find in Occam's razor, which is the principle of the answer with the least explanation is usually the right one. Let's say it was. Why? For the insurance money. They knew Titanic would never pay for itself, so they sank the cheaper ship, so they could claim the insurance money. Okay. Was it necessary to kill 1,000 people to do it, including your captain, and some of the wealthiest socialites the world's ever seen? Was that entirely necessary to do this? Could you have not, I don't know, maybe on its maiden voyage, sank it somewhere and claimed the money that way, instead of, killing thousands of people and having to pay out, because if it's about money, having to pay out hundreds of thousands in compensation to these people? So that's kind of where the logic of that falls apart, isn't it, really? But then you have opinion bias, where if somebody wants a conspiracy theory to be true, they'll ignore all that part and just look for evidence that backs up what they're saying, and ignore the evidence that goes against what they're saying. And that's why I don't touch the conspiracy documentaries, because they're ridiculous. But if you know of good Titanic documentaries that are not conspiracy theories, not interested in conspiracy theories or supernatural, if you know of good Titanic documentaries that are not a conspiracy theory or the supernatural, let us know. Pop it in the comments and we'll watch it, and we'll definitely see it as part of this. So where do I rank it on the list? High, really high on the list. So I would put it at third. Genuinely. So I would say number 1 is still A Night to Remember. Number 2 is the 1997 Titanic. And I would say third is Wake of the Titanic. I don't think it's going to stay there. But did I enjoy it? Yes. Was it entertaining? Very much so. Did it teach me something? Yes, it did. So I strongly recommend you go and watch it. It is on Netflix right now. So if you've got Netflix, you can zip over there and you can find it. You can also get it on Prime, funnily enough. You can buy this on Prime. Next time we're going to look for a movie, because it's been a while since I had a good Titanic movie. I've just watched a string of bad movies and I really need to see a good one. So I'm going to find one that Internet Movie Database at least ranks above 50%. I think we'll be in safe grounds out. I'm sure we can find one. So that's what we're going to do. That's it for this one. Please remember to like and subscribe. Your support is very much appreciated and very much needed. It helps our channel massively. If you're one of the thousands that watch but haven't pulled the trigger yet, go ahead and press the button, be a rascal, and make an old man's day. In a world we can be anything at all, just be nice, and we will be back very, very, very soon with issue 35 and the Gearbox. I will catch you on the next one.